Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Hopefully, Reed will be showing his beautiful face here tonight, but if he doesn't, I don't think anybody watching video is going to be too disturbed by that. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. The title of tonight's episode is Maverick. Because of Dan Quinn's kind of comp with Jayden Daniels doing that checkered line of scrimmage, being to Tom Cruise and Top Gun. So I thought that'd be a good title for tonight's episode. Tomorrow they move going down to Miami, going to joint practices against the Dolphins. So we thought we'd bring in the voice of Washington again, good friend of this pod, Mr. Pete Medhurst. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Pete. How are you doing?
Kyle, Michael, it's good to be with you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And first thing we got to talk about is Martavis Bryant. Being brought here to Washington. I always, we have a couple Steelers buddies. They used to talk his head off, man, and he was a lightning rod on the football field. Obviously, his size is huge here, but from that signing, what did you get from it?
Look, I mean, Dan Quinn knows him from their time together in Dallas. There was a time where his film, when he caught the football, was as electric as anybody in the game because of the size, because of the ability to run after the catch. And we know there's been some issue along the way. There was a suspension, obviously, as well. And, Dan is extending the olive branch to kind of like, hey, let's, at this point, look, this was a 4-win football team last year. We can argue about whether it was well coached, whether it was well personneled from an administrative standpoint.
Good word.
We know the issues with ownership. But at this point, Dan Quinn and company, it does not hurt you to bring in a football player who, if he has anything left, might be able to help you. So why not kick the tires? Why not see what kind of a citizen he's going to be, in your locker room, and see if he's still got anything left at the age of 32 that might help your club? Because, again, the personnel you had won 4 games last year. So why not at this point? You're not out anything. You're not out any money, if it doesn't work out. But, it's Dan Quinn extending an olive branch to a guy one more time just to see what might be out there.
Just real quick, Pete, just to go down the conspiracy row, just put our tinfoil hats on. B. Mitch had some choice words on Twitter, on the radio that got very popular here in D.C., just on social media and X, for example. Just kind of talk about the body language of some of the receivers. Do you have any insight into that? And do you think that has any correlation to the Martavis Bryant signing?
Look, people don't realize how intuitive Brian Mitchell is. Doc Walker, guys that have been there. These are world championship level football players. Okay, they have been to the summit. They know what it is to be a world champion. You look around at a lot of athletes right now, there is the lack of word is, entitlement maybe.
Okay.
But this is a job that requires you to be elite in every way, every day. The best players are elite every day. Why do we talk about the qualities of a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, a Tom Brady? Why did these men win and play to the level they did? Because everything they did was elite, from practice, from how they took care of their bodies, preparation every day was elite. And if guys aren't meeting that standard, then you got to go find some football players that can. And if I'm a wide receiver in that room that's not named Terry McLaurin, I'm looking around the locker room going, oh, this might be a warning flare to me that I need to step up my effort in practice, not the games, not these preseason games. That's not it. Because it's for it, the opinion that, and the place they see you the most is on the practice field. And I think that in itself is probably one of the things that Brian is talking about. And I think this is one of the reasons why they went out and brought in a veteran here to put everybody in that room on notice that, hey, No one is safe here but 17. That's the only guy that is safe in this room. And they want to pick up the effort. They want to pick up the intensity. They want to find out who's really here that wants to play winning football. A lot of guys want to play football, but how many guys want to play elite winning football? That's what this administration and this coaching staff is all about.
No, that's a great point. Definitely a great point. And sticking with the receivers, obviously it's been pretty polarizing over the past couple days with two receivers mainly. One of them being De'Ami Brown, the other one being Jahan Dotson. One positively, some people on social media looking at them one negatively. Two-part question. As you've seen De'Ami Brown kind of show out in training camp again for the second or third consecutive year, and he had the catch in the joint practice. He had the catch in the game. He's been getting a lot of praise from Dan Quinn about his downfield speed and whatnot, and his catchability. Do you think that this is the year that finally De'Ami Brown kind of takes that next step and becomes the guy that we all thought he'd be when he was drafted in the third round? And kind of conversely, Jahan Dotson's been getting a lot of, I guess, negative buzz on social media just because a lot of people have expected more from him. So do you think he has a bounce back kind of reminiscence to his rookie year?
When you are picked 16th in the first round, there's an expectation that you're going to deliver like the number 16 player in the first round. We've seen flashes of that. For whatever reason, things kind of got sideways last year. But I'm going to give him a mulligan on last year. And as we're finding out, I'm going to give everybody a mulligan that played during the Ron Rivera era. Because clearly there was something amiss within the organization as a whole. So all of these guys got a fresh slate with a new staff, new general manager. Now, granted, your film is available to them. They saw how a lot of these guys played on film. And again, as I said, this group won 4. As Ric Flair and company used to be the 4 horsemen. They were elite. But winning 4 games in the NFL is no good. So if you're a first round pick that flashed in your first year and things got a little sideways for you the next year, granted, amidst some quarterback chaos. Okay. I'm willing to give all those guys a pass because of the quarterback chaos. There's no doubt about that. Give De'Ami Brown a lot of credit. This young man has taken advantage of the opportunity. Look, the North Carolina tape tells you he can run down the field as fast as anybody on the field and make a big play. He's got to catch the football. Dotson's got the same issue right now. You got to catch the football consistently. Now, for De'Ami Brown, he just has to do it when the calendar flips to September. You got to do it from September to February. Now, if he can do that, I believe he's got a quarterback that's going to be able to get him the football down the field. We know that right now. And there's going to be opportunity. There's opportunity in that wide receiver room right now for both of those guys to step up and take some big snaps. But there's a reason why they drafted Luke McCaffrey. There's a reason why they brought in Martavis Bryant. And I think all of those guys in that room outside of Terry McLaurin need to be on notice right now that, hey, we're not pleased with what we're seeing on the practice field right now. We need to see more. And that's how you get people's attention. When you start to threaten their playing time and their roster spot, it gets people's attention pretty quick.
Yeah, and today the Commanders made some moves. They released kicker Ramiz Ahmed, I think, to bring in Martavis Bryant. They let go of Mason Brooks today as well. But going into this game against Miami, obviously Jayden Daniels got one drive. Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback, had some choice words to, I'm not sure exactly, I think it might have been on his own podcast, but he had said that Jayden Daniels looks much skinnier than he was at the combine, and he wouldn't play Jayden Daniels for the rest of the preseason because of his frame and how he looked. So my question to you, Pete, is how much playing time do you expect Jayden Daniels, and do you think would be a healthy amount for Jayden to not only be able to get better, because obviously there's a political aspect of this where it's you want to be able to get everyone excited for what the possibility is with this quarterback, but also you don't want to put him in harm's way like we saw with J.J. McCarthy. So how do you kind of weigh that out, and what would you do?
I'd give him at least 2 drives this week. Let's see if what you saw last week is more of what you can see here. Good test. You don't know how many of Dolphins' frontline guys are going to play either, but that is pretty good defensive front when they're healthy. But you don't know if you're going to see all those guys. Look, you got to worry about your football team. You got to worry about developing your football team. And if giving him more real game time, game speed type snaps is what Dan Quinn believes is the right thing to do, then you go out and do it. Because right now you're trying to get ready to win games in September, and the more experience you can give this young man up against an NFL defense, no matter how vanilla it is in the preseason, it's a good thing. I mean, look, I think if you go back and look at last week, what was important about last week, the Thursday practice session with the Jets, no doubt was a struggle for the entire offense. I don't think there's any question about that.
Mm.
But they bounced back. That first group really bounced back, played well in that first drive. You got the big play on a check. I mean, he checked out of the original play, checked into this play, and he hits a big play against good coverage. It was a perfectly thrown football because the coverage was excellent. But you want to see if that's, again, what this offense is all about. Got a couple of really good pieces on the ground. They have to figure out who can play on the offensive line. So you got to play somebody. And, you want to give those offensive linemen a chance to play with better guys because you want to see them with ones and see how it looks with them, because sometimes twos run bad routes, don't see everything they're supposed to see out on the field. So you got to give that group as a whole a chance to compete because they're trying to sort things out at key positions. The only way to do that is to play them with the ones as a group and see if they can be ones themselves.
Yep, definitely agree with that as well. A lot of people have made a big deal about, and rightfully so, I would say, about the two, I would say, biggest weaknesses for this team right now are offensive line, just because of the depth right now, and you don't really know what you have on both ends of the tackles. And the secondary, just as a whole, mainly the cornerbacks on the outside.
Kicker as well. You got to add kicker in there, man.
Yeah, kickers. That's probably a big position as well. But I kind of expect him to sign a guy whenever their people make their cutdowns. But going back to the O line and the cornerback position, secondary position, which one do you see as a bigger weakness right now? And as the season goes on, obviously, the team gets better. They grow week to week to week. Which one do you see growing and being a better position group at the end of the year, the cornerbacks or the offensive line? Or the secondary of the offensive line?
Question.
Fabulous question.
Great question.
I think they're better at safety than you think. Corner, clearly a work in progress right now. Got a veteran in Mike Davis in there that helps a little bit. St. Juste has ability. He's got to stay on the field. Can't help the club when you're in the tub. If he can stay healthy, he has some ability. A little too grabby at times with the hands, but maybe a new coaching staff. And again, I come back to coaching staff. I think this team is going to be much better coached. Every day in practice, in the games, you name it. So they got to break the habit of him being a little handsy. They got to get Forbes confident. I mean, look, Forbes, the thing that really is confusing about the Forbes tape for a lot of people when you evaluated him, yes, he was in the middle of some big plays. Sometimes it was in zone. Sometimes it was off tipped balls that happened to come to him. And I think people got enamored with the fact that, oh, man, this guy's right around big plays. He's always around big plays. There were times against really good people in the SEC where the frying pan was searing on Emmanuel Forbes. But then there was also some really good tape as well. So what we've seen from him is no surprise as of right now, because that's what his tape looked like in the SEC. But you get a lot of people that have not watched college football because they're traveling on Saturdays to go cover their NFL games. So I give these people a pass. I don't take shots at them because they don't watch college football. But if you watch college football, I mean, it's my wheelhouse. This is exactly what he was in college. He's going to make a play. He's going to give up a play against some good people. So I think certainly it's a work in progress. Let's see what the new coaching staff can do. Santa Stills, tremendous football player at Michigan. Young man's going to be able to be a real versatile piece on this defense. Really look to see what Joe Witt can do with him from a weapon standpoint, as I like to call him on the defense. There are very few guys that you can say is a weapon, but this is a guy that can certainly go line up in the slot on people, can certainly line up in the right matchups against some outside people. Not all the time. He's going to have some tough matchups against some people on the outside, but tremendous football player. He's a football player is what he is. I mean, you could put Mike Sandustil in a lot of different positions. I guarantee you he'd figure out how to play it. That's just the kind of player that he is. But that whole room right now is a work in progress. And again, I look at it, at from number 2 down at the wide receiver spot. There's some snaps available there if you play some really good football. And we'll just have to see if Joe Witt and this defensive staff can really polish up some of these guys who in flashes have shown us some ability, but at times have also shown us a lot of inconsistency. And in the case of St. Jude, you got to just stay healthy. I mean, you'd like to have Benjamin around for 17 games, and I think he becomes a better football player by just playing more football. And we'll see if this defensive staff can clean those guys up.
And maybe Mike Samerstill can kick. Maybe we should see that in practice here soon.
But, I mean, look, I watch Riley Patterson at Memphis. I mean, he's a very competent kicker. The problem with kickers is your opportunities to affect the game are few. You may only have one a game outside of kicking an extra point to kick a field goal. So your opportunities are rare. Quarterback, he has an incompletion. He usually gets another chance to throw another one. Running back gets -1. He's got a chance to get another carry. Offensive lineman gets a holding penalty. He usually gets to play 40 more snaps during the game. The life of the kicker is completely different. His opportunities are few and far between to affect the game. So if you miss on a possession into the red zone or scoring territory and you don't get points out of a drive, A, you don't get points, but B, it kind of takes a little air out of the balloon a little bit too. So that's why the kicker position is a little more important than you think. Look, Riley was competent in college. Like many, you get with the wrong team, you get to a wrong tryout, and they've already got a good kicker there. You're just not going to make the team. So I don't think it's not that he can't kick. And maybe with Ahmed now being released, maybe Patterson's confidence goes up a little bit, and maybe he can secure the job. But as we know, there usually becomes some kickers available here toward the end of camp. So if they're not real confident in the position, they can certainly go find somebody else and bring them in for a tryout.
Yeah, and Pete, you talked about Emmanuel Forbes before, and I liken it to having a bad stretch of drives, playing 18 holes, where you're just in that he just seems to be getting in that comfort zone of just being in the bad position. And, you need a good drive here and there to put you back on the right path, to get the swing right? But
well, yeah, I mean, and think about this too. In pro football, there are very few gimmies.
Yeah.
When you're playing in the SEC, every now and then you play a team that's not physically up to the challenge. So you get away with some things because you'll play 3 or 4 games a year against some teams that aren't very good. Problem with the SEC, though, is there's a lot of games against people who are good. And that's the way it is in the National Football League. Even when you play a 3 or 4 win team, I mean, Washington won 4 games last year. Do you think corners wanted to match up with Terry McLaurin? No, because that's a losing proposition for the most part against even a guy like Terry. So that's what Forbes is fighting. I think what Forbes is fighting right now is all right up here, man. I think it's all right up here. The key to being a great corner is the next play mentality. These guys are going to make plays on you. Just don't let a guy turn a 4-yard catch into a 40-yard catch. Don't commit a holding penalty on 3rd and 5 where the ball's high, not going to be caught, but yet you grab the guy anyway, and it gives him, 5 free yards and a first down. Those are the kind of things that Forbes has to fight right now. And again, I do believe there's ability there. I mean, everybody makes the comparison. Christian Gonzalez was there and all that other stuff. Yeah, I mean, Christian Gonzalez is a good player. But he got hurt last year, so we really don't know how good he is as a pro. Everybody's trying to kill, Ron for the pick. And Forbes was going in the first round, whether it was here or somewhere else. It just was kind of surprising to many that Gonzalez was also hanging around down there in that part of the round. And I think Gonzalez was the more finished product. I think Forbes is a guy that might still have some upside, at least you would think, maybe. But again, I come back to Joe Witt, this very talented defensive staff. It's now incumbent upon them to see if this young man has the kind of talent that made him a first-round pick, and see if they can polish him up here and make him a quality every-down football player.
Yeah, and not that many remember that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt actually brought him in for a top 30 visit when he was with Dallas, too.
Yeah,
so
sure. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Everybody brought the guy in. Anybody that wanted defensive back certainly brought him in. I mean, if he wouldn't have gone in the first round here, he was going in the first round somewhere else. It's not like Jahan Dotson. I'm not sure Jahan Dotson was going, that high in the first round anywhere else. Forbes was probably going to go in the next couple of picks, even if Washington had taken Gonzalez. So let's not make it out to be like they took some guy that was a fourth round evaluation in the first round, because that's kind of disingenuous. I mean, we're kind of killing Ron because the guy didn't work out, but other teams were going to take him in the first round.
My man. To wrap this up, Pete, only a couple more questions for you, but the team released Mason Brooks today in order to sign Trace McSorley. So now there's about 5 quarterbacks on the roster, but I know Sam Hartman is dealing with an injury to his shoulder. The rumor is that Marcus Mariota possibly has his own injury. Do you know any input on that with Marcus Mariota and why they would bring in Trace McSorley at this point?
Well, Trace McSorley's here for 2 reasons. Because you need bodies in camp to throw. And if Mariota and Hartman are nursing shoulder problems, they can't throw. So you got to have somebody. The good thing for them is McSorley lives right around the corner from the facility. So that guy can be there in 5 minutes. So that's the good thing. Somebody's got to play in the game. Jayden Daniels not going to go play 4 quarters on Saturdays. So somebody has to play in the game coming up on Saturday. And it's clearly not going to be Hartman probably. And if Mariota's banged up too, then, Trace McSorley's going to get a lot of snaps, and maybe he has a chance to stick around because, he did have some time with Kingsbury out there in Arizona in addition to his time in Baltimore as well. So, good for him. I mean, he's a local guy. What a great story it would be if somehow he could stick with the team. And even if it's as a third quarterback here, I mean, look at what happened with J.J. McCarthy in the first exhibition game. He's tearing it up. He's looking. There, people are like, Sam Darnold? Who? No, it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. And then guy's got a torn meniscus. He's out for the year all of a sudden. So it just goes to show you how fast your quarterback room can change. And, Mick Sorley's, like I said, he's 5 minutes away. This guy Kingsbury's got a file on. So, let's see what happens. And I would expect to see him in the second half of this game coming up this weekend.
Yeah, me as well, sir. 6 foot, 202 pounds for Trace McSorley. My next question for you, Pete, not to avoid picking the low-hanging fruit, but one player that you saw in the first preseason game through practices that you want to see more of against the Dolphins?
It's a great question. I mean, Ben Sinnott is too obvious. Because I love what I saw initially there. But again, having watched him in college, not surprised about the production.
Nope.
So I think all the tight ends need to play more. Because there's some things, Cole Turner is in a make it or break it year, I think, for him. Again, you put the college tape on, he's catching footballs. So we know he's got the ability. Last year, he was blocking an awful lot when he was playing, and that's not what he was brought here for. So let's see what he looks like in an offense that might be more conducive to passing the football. Look, anybody that's playing on can we see Coleman at tackle, for a couple of possessions to see how he holds up against NFL competition? He's a young man that has the frame, the athleticism, to be a good lineman, clearly flexible. I'm not as convinced about moving him to guard as I was Cosme. I thought Cosme should go to guard immediately. Brandon's I just think Brandon's a little more athletically equipped to play tackle than Sam was. But Sam's a devastating run blocker, especially. I mean, and he's good internally. Pass blocking. It's why he's literally turning into an all-pro guard, like Zach Martin of the Cowboys did. It looks like the same thing. Zach was a tackle in college, but he's turning into an all-pro. He's turning into an all-pro guard. And I think Sam Cosme's doing the same thing. I just thought that was the better position for him, and his play is exuding that. He's turning into an elite level guard. Coleman, on the other hand, I still think has ability to play tackle. But we got to see it. I mean, you can't just say, hey, that guy's going to be a good tackle. Well, we haven't seen it at this level. Well coached, trust the coaching he got in college. So I think let's see it though against the NFL's best that he's going to have to put up with here in the National Football League. So he's a guy that I need, like you said. I mean, I'm not talking about the 87th guy on the roster. We're talking about people that have to have an impact on this football team, and no one bigger to me on the offensive line than Coleman right now. So Miami presents quality. Let's go see what he's got.
My man. And last one I have for you, Pete. Tressway's tackle. I know, barring the wide receivers and the kind of lackadaisical maybe energy that has been produced thus far that's been seen by other people, but I think Tressway's tackle says a lot about the energy and the overall culture at the moment. Are you seeing something similar?
Look, the best thing you can say about a player in this game is they're a football player. Tressway's a football player, man. He's unbelievably good for your culture, and he has a passion for the game. And you want people that are passionate about football, and football's important to them. Even though he's a punter, football and winning is important to Tressway. He's a competitive guy, and as far as I'm concerned, man, give me 15 guys like that on my football team. I want winning players. Mike Singletary was right about one thing. I know the tenure didn't go great as a head coach, but if you don't have winning football players, he's right. You can't win with them, So that's what it's all about. It's having great culture guys in your building. Tressway is clearly one of them.
Yeah, that Frankie Louvu's reaction was mine exactly. I mean, he was losing his mind on the sideline. I think there's a lot of people doing that as well. Pete, I can't thank
Frankie,
you enough.
look, I mean, that's a guy. I hope people pay attention to Frankie Louvu too, because they are going to love him. They are going to love him. I know Bobby Wagner's Bobby's got a Hall of Fame resume, but they're going to love Frankie Louvu too. And I can't wait to see what the regular season looks and how they utilize him as well.
Yeah, and Pete, I know it's late. I really appreciate you being able to come on here and chalk it up with us, being able to talk with the Commanders nearly 30 minutes, and I can't thank you enough for going over for us, sir. But before we get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle, sir, just in case anybody following hasn't followed you yet.
As always, I keep it simple, at Pete Medhurst on X or Twitter, if you prefer, because I still call it Twitter. People still call it Twitter. And when I say, hey, I'm on Twitter, everybody knows what you're talking about, even though it's X right now. So appreciate you guys as always, man.
Thank you, Pete, and have a good week. Enjoy the joint practices and the game this weekend, sir. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Appreciate you.
All right, everybody. We just talked with the man, Pete Medhurst. Gotta appreciate Pete, man.
Yeah, man, definitely. I like that he gives a lot of detailed, insightful answers to the questions, not just like a couple words here and there, and then wait for the one. He's like, he'll go on and explain what he's talking about. So I definitely love that.
Yes, and we had a commenter on our last episode to kind of ask, ask if we can do like more of a roundtable on what the guest has talked about. And obviously Reed is not here, but like I would like to try that out, see how it goes. So the one thing I took away from Pete's comments about Brian Mitchell's comments on the radio about the wide receiver unit, for me personally, like we talk about the culture change, right? We talk about the defense playing with their hair on fire, flying everywhere, 4 hats on every ball carrier, trying to do their best to hit the ball out. And I think that that's like the sort of thing that Brian Mitchell is kind of highlighting, is that there is a difference in how things are being orchestrated and played out, in the sense that the defense is flying around, hair on fire, offensive line's getting after it, tight ends are getting in their face in the mud, they're getting in there dirty and trying to block their asses off and everything, and running backs are running hard. And maybe that he's not seeing it from some people in that wide receiver unit. We don't know who, but obviously I respect what Brian Mitchell has to say. But like that's the sort of thing that can help you as an organization, where you don't have the coaching staff going to the podium and saying this about a player. You can have the radio have it get out there, because look, it's going to find its way home. I guarantee you that. Somehow it's finding its way home. And that's probably the best thing in this sort of scenario. So credit to Brian Mitchell for just being honest about what he's seeing. But for me personally, I think it's more about the whole culture aspect of it. And right now is the perfect time to nip it in the butt. You don't want to deal with this sort of thing in week 4 or week 5. What do you think?
No, I agree. And like you said, Brian Mitchell, obviously everyone respects what he's saying. And he's someone that's not only just out there most days watching the practices, doing his live show from the practices, but obviously being an alumni of this team, one of the most popular players and famous players for this team. He obviously talks to people in the building. He's around the building a lot. So it's probably not just what he's observing, but it's also probably what he's hearing. So, kudos to him for actually. This is why I've always respected B. Mitch, because he's not just like a cheerleader for the team. He's not going to always be Mr. Positive about the team. If he's feeling a certain way about the team, he's going to speak his mind about it. So I definitely always respect B. Mitch for that. But like you said, definitely a good time to nip it in the bud. If you just go back to even last year when we're at training camp and we're watching it and they're doing the press conferences before they come out to practice, and all of a sudden it's just kind of chill and everyone's looking at their phone like ding, ding, ding. Kind of like in the movies, everyone gets that text message and that alert like, oh, what's going on? And, of course, it's the whole players complaining about EB being too hard on them and da-da-da-da-da. We should have known it was a foreshadowing to what was going to be coming of the rest of the season. So, like you said, it would be smart to kind of nip that in the bud now. And for a team that's had such a bad culture for the past 20-plus years, and you're trying to turn the page on that last era of whatever that was and start from scratch and start a whole new thing. You want guys that, like Pete said, not only love football, but would love to be here, that want to be here, not just, as B. Mitch said, kind of, hey, even though we don't know who they're talking about, but the entitlement of, hey, I was this guy last year, or I was drafted in this position, I should be getting these reps. These guys just came in here. They have no ties to any of these people except for the people that they wanted here, that they signed. So at the end of the day, if you want to be here, you want to be on board with what's hopefully to come. Like B. Mitch said, you should probably check yourself, change your attitude around, and maybe that'll start getting you some more reps. Maybe the coaches see that as well, that, hey, this guy's walking around practice kind of pouting, kind of feeling like he's entitled. Well, sit on the bench for a while, and we're going to show you that you're not that entitled yet. So at the end of the day, I just want players that want to be here and players that are going to be culture setters and be good for the culture. And if that's not someone on the roster right now, or they need to make some changes, I'm all for that.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it a couple weeks ago in regards to the defensive line and Deron Payne in his presser talking about Darryl Tapp getting after him like literally every single rep, right? We talked about how you can have those sort of egos about you based on how much you're being paid, where you were, like you said, drafted at, your previous success. And these guys are willing to work and embracing that work and getting after it. And that's my sort of sense of saying, like, the fact of what the defense, what the other side of the football is actually absorbing what's being, pushed upon them. And so obviously what I respect the heck out of Brian Mitchell. I respect what he has to say and where he's been, because we haven't been in an NFL locker room around these egos. And there's a lot that goes into it. But that's why you buy into the culture, you buy into the atmosphere. And this is where somebody like Bobby Wagner steps in, right? And has to be that oh my goodness, I'm butchering it.
Mediator.
Yeah, my bad. It has to be the middleman in the sense of going to Jahan and saying, look, you're not far off here. Like, it's not like they're giving up on you, man. They just want to see you fight. I want to see you fight. I know you're capable. You're in the NFL. You were drafted there for a reason, but you can't let that get to your head, sort of thing. So I ultimately believe that they'll be able to, whatever Brian Mitchell is seeing, hopefully they'll be able to remedy it. And that would explain a lot of things in the sense of what we saw on against the Jets. But I'm not too concerned about it, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, you're going to put players on like Tressway, and this is why Terry McLaurin is just a fresh breath of air. And like who he is as a person, because even though he has all this success, that's the fans absolutely love him. He got the contract, he gets the highlights, he gets the national media stage, kind of thing where they're hyping him up a lot. He still is out there working hard. And look, we don't know who Brian Mitchell. He could be talking about Terry. I highly doubt that he's talking about Terry, judging the fact that got his jersey.
Honestly, I was actually thinking about this. Everyone was like talking about, oh, it's Jahan, it's Jahan, it's Jahan. But from everything that we've heard so far throughout camp, Jahan's been having a pretty good camp. Him and Jayden Daniels meshing pretty well and whatnot. I was kind of thinking like maybe it's Luke McCaffrey that he's talking about, because Luke was drafted in the third round. A lot of people had high hopes and high expectations just based off the last name that, hey, he's going to come in here. Look what he did at Rice within like 2 years, whatever it's been, of him switching positions. Like, somebody hyped him up as like he's this year. Oh, Jim Nagy. He's this year's Puka Nacua. So I think people kind of got this idea of in the last name. Oh, Luke McCaffrey, he's about to be a baller. And then all of a sudden you get the camp. People have been reporting like he's not really making those splash plays, he's not really standing out, da 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 da. Maybe it's him that's like, well, I was drafted here. I'm a third round pick. Why is this guy getting more reps than me, more snaps than me? I need to be on the field getting better and getting more reps. Like obviously, like Pete said, only way to get better at football is playing football. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe it's Luke McCaffrey and not
That's
Jahan. But
honestly, bro, that's the best case scenario. You only have to do is call old man McCaffrey and let him know, and I'm sure that he's gonna deal with
yeah.
that immediately.
But
You don't even have to do all that much.
and that was also the flip side of it. I'm like, but he's like a McCaffrey, so like he has his brother, his dad. So like, and again, but there's more pressure on you. Like, oh, my brother and my dad were all pro Super Bowl winner, or CMAC hasn't won a Super Bowl, all pro, like probably Hall of McCaffrey's not in the Hall of Fame, but you know what I'm saying.
He won
All
a
pro
Super Bowl.
type level players, Super Bowl winners. Christian McCaffrey's best at his position. Maybe he's like feeling like, oh, I need to live up to my name and I need to get on the field to kind of show and prove. But and then maybe that he's the one walking around like pouting and kind of just giving off the bad body language. But again, the flip side of that is it's Christian McCaffrey's brother, Ed McCaffrey. He was pretty much brought up and raised to play football. So you would think that like the ego thing would be kind of be like, but again, you never know who he's talking about.
Yeah, look, and that ego is not. Look, it's fantastic to have an ego in the football field. You and I have both have had teammates gone against people with egos that go, and they honestly that it does go onto the field. But ultimately, that ego is not going to help you in the NFL. Really, working hard is, and that's essentially what Brian Mitchell's point.
Especially in a league where everyone has egos, you can have an ego and have an edge in high school and college, and you'll be more athletic than that person, and it'll stand out more. You get to an NFL, like you said. Everyone's got those egos, and it's grown men making money. Like literally, this is what they do for a job. So you got to step your level up.
Yeah, dude, like the Ravens wide receiver who, like a month or two ago, uploaded practice film from last year's training camp on Emmanuel Forbes, like in one-on-ones. It's like everyone's got egos, bro. Everyone's trying to prove, they got somebody to impress. But let's answer some fan questions to wrap up this episode, brother. This one is from the Colonel. Really good one. Does Jamison Crowder make this team?
That's a good question. As we've already talked about, it's been talked about endlessly on social media, all through the radio waves, and even Dan Quinn said it. That wide receiver position outside of Terry, obviously Jahan's going to make the team. Luke's going to make the team. I would say Diami's going to make the team. That's 4 guys right there.
Alamadi
Zaccheaus is going to make the team. That's 5 guys right there. So that 6th spot is up for grabs, whether it's Kaz Allen, I highly doubt it, but Martavis Bryant, Pringle, not McCaffrey, but all those guys we're talking about right now, Jamison Crowder. And I would say that right now, I would give the slight edge for that 6th receiver spot to Jamison Crowder because of the punt return ability. Obviously, we've seen Crowder here in his past couple of years here when we drafted him here. He's a good punt returner. He's pretty much stuck around in the league as a punt returner. He gets a couple reps here and there as a receiver on different teams he's been on, but he's mostly been in the league on the rosters as a punt returner. I would probably say he's probably our best punt returner as of right now, the most sure-handed punt returner. And at the end of the day, I would love the opposite of Dax Milne, which is catch the ball, get to the sideline as fast as possible, but at least he caught the ball, and that's all I'm really worried about. And I know for a fact that Jamison Crowder is back there, 99.9% of the time, he's going to catch that ball. So I would say Jamison Crowder, as of right now, has that slight edge of that 6th receiver, but anything could happen these last couple weeks of preseason and training camp.
It's funny that you asked this, Colonel, because I was actually thinking about this today. Like, how come Jamison Crowder didn't get any punt returns in against the Jets? Is that because they want to be able to iron out this wide receiver depth and see what guys are capable of? Like, is it a thing of having the confidence with Jamison to say we know what he's going to do? There's no reason to put him out there in preseason. Let's see what these other guys can do. Or is it something more along the lines of saying that's kind of open and we know that Jamison isn't going to be there, so we have to see these other guys to be able to find out. But then it goes into the veteran aspect of it. But on the flip side of that, on the, I guess you could say 180 side of it, the Martavis Bryant size is something that cannot be replicated. And obviously, coming out of college, I'm not sure if he still runs a 4.42. Ran a 4.42, being 6'4", 210 pounds. It's a big dude. And that size is not something that is really booming in this wide receiver room. And that's something you obviously really need. And so that brings in a very obvious kind of thorn into this discussion, because what is ultimately going to help you? And I think with having a rookie wide receiver, a rookie quarterback, it would really help you to have that big kind of target. Obviously, you have that with the tight ends, but having that on the outside is something, especially with that speed, is something that can really help you. But we have to see, obviously, Martavis hasn't played in 5 years. And no disrespect to him, obviously he's got to work his way into the lineup. You can't just come in here and earn the spot and have the spot handed to you. You got to earn it. But I'm just saying that size is the kind of difference maker here, and saying what are they kind of looking for, right? And I think that goes into a lot of it. But for me, I think Crowder does make the team as the punt returner, and we've seen what he can do at wide receiver last year too. He still was a huge help, extending, getting first downs, extending plays, being able to be there for Sam Howell at points last season. So I think Jamison Crowder does offer you more, and so I do think that Jamison does make the team at the moment in case something, regardless of whatever happens. Martavis could literally just light up the field, and then to the point where you're just like, okay, we have to. You know what I mean? Right. But I think if that doesn't happen, I think Jamison does make the squad. Now let's move to the Discord to answer the rest. This is from our boy, Mr. Deluxe. Anybody know a good way to change the nameplate of a number 10 jersey? Have multiple Griffins. At least one should get updated. Respect the way.
I saw that question earlier. I thought about it. Couldn't come up with a great idea, honestly. Like, I definitely see where you're coming from. Definitely want to change it up to a Trustway jersey. I think they reported that he's going to stick with 10. So, it's kind of going to be hard to take Griffin and kind of like downsize it to Way, which is like 3 letters. Griffin is 6, 7 letters, whatever it is. But
it is possible. You just got to cut.
No, it's definitely possible. Yeah, you just got to. I don't know. Get creative with it. I was trying to think of something creative, but
you'd probably use a box cutter, and then I'm not sure about the stitching. I'm not a stitching man myself. Obviously, I could ask my mom for you because she gave me that gift, the Burgundy Zone jersey that they stitched the back name on it. So I'll make sure to ask her, Deluxe. But I would just say to get the name off of it, I think isn't the worst thing in the world. I think you could just use a box cutter on each side and just strip those threads off.
Just use some tape and just put some tape over it and then write
That's
Way.
The easy way.
Sharpie.
That's the easy way. Now the next question, this one's from Tim Towner. Burgundy Zone does math. What are the odds that Minnesota has a better record than Washington? Man, have they had a bad day. J.J. McCarthy out for the season. Jordan Addison injures his ankle today at practice. Obviously, Kyrie Jackson's and his unfortunate death a month or so ago. It's just absolutely dreadful what's happening to them. I think they lost another corner too.
They lost a corner like the first day of like OTAs when they weren't even, or maybe it was training camp when they were just in like just running around in like shorts. So I think there are other like another starting cornerback or something like that got injured. The second day of practice is out for the season. So they've definitely been going through it this off season. But as far as percentage or wise, they have a better win total. Honestly, we'll probably be around the same. I got us kind of both, just because I know people rag on Sam Darnold, probably rightfully so. He hasn't been very good throughout his 5-6 years in the NFL so
Kevin
far.
O'Connell.
Yes, I have so much faith in Kevin O'Connell that not just him as a head coach, but like him as an offensive mind, him as a former quarterback. He's going to put his quarterback in the best position to make plays and set his offense up for success. You still got You still got Justin Jefferson on the outside. They're going to have T.J. Hawkinson, who's probably a top 5 tight end right now, eventually when he gets back from his injury. You got a left tackle to protect his blind side. The offensive line is pretty solid. So, I mean, I could definitely see them hovering around that 6, maybe 7 win range just because, again, I got so much faith in KOC and what he can do for his quarterbacks. So I'd probably say we'll probably end up with the same amount of wins around that 6 to 8 range.
I don't think the odds are that high, to be honest with you. I don't think they're deep. I think ultimately for me, Tim, I put a lot into that defense, and I think that defense is going to be struggling. And I don't think it's any disrespect to the offense. I think you're right. Kevin O'Connell can move the football, and they'll be able to do that. But the other underlying factor here is the division that they play in. Going against the Bears, they've added 3 number 1 wide receivers, obviously added Caleb Williams to the mix. Green Bay just paying Jordan Love, and we know what Green Bay is capable of. That's a well-built unit that they have overall as a team. Solid defense, a up and coming kind of offense, and then the Lions obviously kind of dictating things there. And so I could see that we talked about who could be the number one drafting team this year, having a number one overall pick. I said possibly the Vikings. And that was before JJ got injured. And all this other stuff. So I do think that the Vikings are in that kind of territory at this moment. And no disrespect to them, obviously I could be completely wrong about this when we look back months later, but just the way I'm looking at it right now, I think the odds are low that they would have a better record than Washington. I think that Washington overall is going to be able to do what they want to do, and they're going to be that kind of team that just finds a way to win these football games, kind of like the Detroit Lions from years ago. And obviously they have a very hard schedule, Washington does. But at the end of all be all, I'm not going to say that my team's going to be worse than the Vikings just based on everything that's happened with them. I have full confidence in this unit just based on the energy and then what I'm feeling right now. And obviously the energy doesn't mean nothing once you come in September going against the ones. But I just feel like I'm putting credence into what I'm seeing. And I think that it's legit, to be honest, Tim. Now the next question that we have is from Deluxe. Can the overdrafted narrative please end? If Washington didn't select them, another team would have soon after. It's a tired narrative. Not every draft pick hits or fits. That's why having more darts to throw is always good.
Yeah, no, you're right. I guess you could say they were overdrafted because if Washington didn't draft them, they would have been drafted later on in that round or maybe possibly the next round. So, technically, they were overdrafted because, like you said, a lot of the players that were first round picks under Rivera were looked at as not really reaches because, again, like you said, they were going to be picked at some point, but they were just picked kind of like fantasy football. If you see a guy you like, you're going to pick him 5, 10, 15 spots from what he's valued at on the board. So you could say that's an overdraft if he doesn't hit, but, it is what it is. I think it's more about when you see guys like JOK, you see guys like Christian Gonzalez, you see guys like Christian Darrisaw that are getting second contracts, that are playing at a high level, that are making that are top 5, top 10 players on their entire
that were
team.
Selected after, right?
That were selected after them, that were also projected to maybe be a pick for Washington. It just puts a bigger spotlight on the mistakes. I'll just call it the mistakes that the last regime possibly could have made as far as the first round picks go.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder, man, to be honest. And look, everyone's going to parade around and say this and that. And look, I can do it myself.
Look, everyone wants to be a I told you so type
Yeah,
person.
look, I can do it myself. I was very distraught after the Forbes pick because I really wanted Christian Gonzalez. He was a consensus top 10 pick. I thought that he was that sort of player, right? But at the end all be all, like I've used this before, Arch, in saying, but what if we got that player and Emmanuel Forbes balls out with another team, and we're sitting here saying, well, why didn't we draft Emmanuel Forbes? We got this guy who keeps getting injured, right? Like the grass is always greener on the other side, so to speak. Kind of the same thing I've said with Brandon Ayuk and Jahan Dotson. If we had Brandon Ayuk the past couple of years and Jahan Dotson was in San Francisco, I think we'd all be saying, why can't we draft a guy like Jahan Dotson? How come San Francisco finds him in the back end of the first round type thing? And I agree with you in that sense that, it sucks that what we have seen come into fruition, but ultimately, I think Pete Medhurst said it correctly in that they get a mulligan just because of nobody else had to kind of deal with the circus that was Washington over the past 3-4 years. I mean, honestly, it's out of this world, the kind of stuff that was going on. Players are getting asked about. And so, look, let's give them the mulligan. And it's not okay to sit here and say it's okay to be crappy. I'm not saying that. It's not that it's acceptable, but you can understand why. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, these guys had all the chances in the world to blow up and everything. But it's kind of like, but wait, though. Did they,
I always look at it like, go back to 2020 when people were like, oh, we should have drafted Tua. We should have drafted Justin Herbert. Like the hindsight started coming in. And there was people that were saying before the draft and pre-draft process, no, we need to either trade back. We need to take a quarterback at 2, whatever, da-da-da. I always look at it like, look, whatever happened with Chase happened. It is what it is. But if we would have drafted, say it was Tua, Justin Herbert, whoever it might be.
Thank you.
They would not have been Justin Herbert's rookie year would not have happened if he would have been drafted here. You know what I'm saying? there wasn't the environment set up enough for them to actually thrive with everything going on off the field, but the coaching staff not really being up to the level of other certain coaching staffs in the rest of the league. So, and then Justin Herbert had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler in the backfield. You know what I'm saying? So, like, just the overall weapons weren't the same. You saw what happened in Miami. They were trying to get rid of him before Mike McDaniels got there. So, everything's always hindsight is always 2020. Like I said, it just goes back to the fact of there was a group of players throughout the past couple drafts that the fans wanted, that the local reporters were like kind of not really pushing, but saying like, "Hey, this person fits, this person da 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 da," and then whenever that person doesn't get picked here and then goes to another team later on in the draft, and you see them thriving and surviving, getting second contracts, making all pros, it's like, damn, like that could have been us. Like, why can't we have nice things?
Look, I know, man, but that's why
But on the flip side, who knows?
bright. The future is bright
of
based
course.
on what
But
we
on
have here.
Like I said, who knows if JOK would have been JOK that he's been in Cleveland because
Right.
of the coaching staff here. Who knows if Darisaw would have been turned out to be our franchise left tackle. You could also say football players that are ballers are going to be ballers no matter where you put them at. So, you know, it goes both ways.
You're right. You're right. Kind of like Reed. Now, the next question from Deluxe. Thoughts on labeling of players? I've been through multiple mergers in my career. It always goes poorly when people get tossed into buckets based on the side of the merger they were on. It seems like the organization is treating the players the same no matter how they got here. Do you think the majority of the fan base will hop on board with the idea of one team at any point this season?
I would say majority of the fan base, yeah, if they start to win games, if they start to put things together and look competent, if obviously if the players that Adam Peters drafted, if a couple of those guys pan out and are like legit, like cornerstone, like going forward, like players that you're going to see like, hey, we saw this in their rookie year, or we saw this like Jeremy Chin. We saw this from him in this defense. He's one of our guys going forward. I think that by the end of the season, if they say Jayden Daniels is like the guy going forward, like he's definitely our quarterback for the next at least 5 years minimum on his rookie deal, then I think fans will be united in the fact of, okay, we finally have like something that we can build on, and we're finally building something that might be sustainable, and we're actually kind of like reaching or the light of the almost at the end of the tunnel type thing where it's like, okay, in years past, you add a player, you do this, you do that. It's like, well, maybe if this happens and this goes right and da 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 da, we can get to 9 wins and anything can happen in the playoffs. Where I feel like now, if Ben Sinnott shows out, if Zach Ertz has a good season, if Austin Eckler is back to almost what he was in with the Chargers, and the draft picks pan out like Jayden Daniels and Coleman and da 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 da, then I think fans will be like, you know what, we're finally starting to right the ship and get to the end of that tunnel where it's like, okay, we can finally compete for the playoffs, championships, and whatever it may be. So I do think that it's a quarterback league. It's a quarterback-driven league. If the quarterback plays well, the fan base will unite and play well, if you want to call it that.
Very well done, sir. For me personally, Arch, I feel like it's just a microcosm of the social media just age, where it's very easy to talk crap to somebody. It's very easy to form an opinion, and it's very easy to say certain things that you'd like to be able to say, right? For me personally, I kind of look at these things differently. I look at these things like, well, what if it was you? What if it was you put in that situation? Would you want grace? Would you want mercy from the fan base? Would you want support? And would you want people to be able to say, I believe in this guy. I think that he can do what he can. Because at this point, you are on the bleachers. You have to acknowledge the reality of the situation. And I think that the guise of saying, but you're not winning, your team has been bad, has given the okay to kind of have that kind of attitude towards players where you kind of can shoo them down and put them down, right? But everybody has a reason for why they believe what they believe in. Just personally, that's just what I think. And so that's why I kind of look at things a little bit differently. And look, you can say whatever the heck you want about me. I really don't care at the end of the day. I'm a happy man. I'm very blessed. And so I'm not here to complain about anything. I just want to see my football team win, of course. And if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's going to happen sooner or later. And so I'm just waiting for that day, and hopefully it's with the guys that are on this football team that they buy into the system and they're ready to kick some ass, dude, because that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a bunch of Tressways out there laying everybody out. Now, the next question that we have, this one is from Tim Towner, I think. Alad. Sorry, Alad in the UK. Oi, thank you, Alad.
Oi.
He's actually coming from the UK for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. So credit to Alad for making the
Oh,
trip.
very
He said,
nice.
do you think that McLaurin will get to 1,000 yards earlier than the last game this season? With Daniels coming in, do you think that he will help him beat his best season of 1,191 yards? 1,191 yards.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the fingers crossed that he's been pretty durable throughout his career, knock on wood. So I would expect that we're going to get the same Terry, the same 70 plus catches Terry, the same 1,000+ yards Terry. The one thing that I want to see Terry, and he's even said this himself, be kind of excelling and get better at, and a lot of it hasn't really been his fault because a lot of his catches have been contested, is that Jayden Daniels is going to put the ball where his receiver can get it, but also make a play with the ball as well once he gets the ball, like yak yards. And obviously, Terry, going back to high school, played in like a triple option type offense, so he's used to like running the ball and kind of running like a running back and breaking tackles, being kind of that strong runner in the open field. So hopefully he gets back to that. And I would say that, yeah, I would say that he's probably going to get to 1,000 yards, hopefully by, let's call it week 14 of the season. That he'll get to the 1,000-yard mark. He'll get to whatever it is, 70+ catches. But going back to what I was saying, I want to see Terry have more than 4.5 touchdowns. I think is what he's averaged throughout his career. I want to see him get to that 7, kind of what Jahan did, that 7, 8, push that 10 touchdown range, because I think he's capable of it. I think Cliff Kingsbury in this offense with Terry and the weapons around are capable of it. And I think the quarterback is finally capable of putting Terry and setting him up for better success. So I think he's going to excel in his yard after catch this year. I think his touchdowns go up, and I do think that he gets to 1,000 yards, let's say, call it by like week 14.
Yeah, Aled, let's take a seat real quick. One of the reasons why Terry McLaurin he struggled to get over 1,000 yards last season.
Literally had to get dragged across the line.
Because without the running game, and this is what I have been preaching with the rookie quarterback, you have to fundamentally have the running game concrete in order to create space. Because last season they weren't very good at running the football. So you have to imagine the middle of the field, those abilities to catch a slant and run and have that after the play ability to extend the play, get extra yardage in those long touchdowns like you were talking about. In order to do that, you have to create the space in the middle of the field. If the defense does not respect the running game, they're going to sit back. And so naturally, how Terry makes plays is deep downfield, away from that box. That's how he gets those. And he keeps coming up with those balls. But to your credit, what I will say is that I think that running the football is what really is going to help him be able to make those plays after the catch. If we can think back to 2012, the season opener against the Saints, what does RG3 do to Pierre Garçon? He does the fake handoff, dumps it immediately to Pierre on that slant, and what does he have? He has space to run because those linebackers, those safeties were expecting the run there. And so I think that goes a long way with it. So do I expect Terry to get over 1,000 yards and to possibly get close to his career high in 1,191 yards? Yeah, I do think so. I do think he has a chance to get over that, and it all depends on the run game and Jayden Daniels staying healthy. So I will say that, yes, I do think that he has the capability of doing so, and from what I've seen, I think the coaching staff is very invested into making that running game work in order to help that passing game be able to do that, if that makes sense. Now, the last question we have, this one is from Tim Towner. Over under, Jahan Dotson, 75 catches. I think he says 750 yards. Yes, 750 and 750 yards plus. Over under that he goes over.
75 catches. I'll say under 75 just because he's pretty much average 50. And for him to get an extra 25 catches, it would be a crazy uptick. And it'd be taking targets and catches away from other guys. So I like that they're probably going to spread the ball out. Like, obviously, Terry's going to get his. I think Zach Ertz is going to be a big piece because middle of the field, Cliff Kingsbury likes to work the middle of the field with his tight ends. But I'll say less than 75. I think he gets to that 60, 65-ish, 70, 67-ish range for catches. But I will say that, and this is fingers crossed, because that Jahan is my guy. I do think he gets over 750. I think it's not much over 750, but I think he gets around that 800 plus, like just over 800 yards, like total receiving. And I say that he'll have, let's see, he had 4 touchdowns last year, 7 his first year. I'll go with like 6 touchdowns this year, 5 or 6 touchdowns.
I'm going to go the opposite. I am going to go under 75 receptions and 750 receiving yards. But I do think that his touchdown total is going to be higher than it was last season, kind of mimicking what he did his rookie year. The reason I say that is I think he's going to be operating a lot in the middle of the field, shallow, those crossers, manipulating things, allowing Terry to create the space. And I think that the tight ends are a glaring kind of thorn here for Jahan Dotson, where he's much more so going to be the guy kind of operating in that realm, where Zach Ertz and company and Terry are going to be the moving of the chains guys. And whatever with Jahan, I think he's going to really show himself to be the sticky hands again, where in the end zone, in those red zone kind of opportunities to be open for Jayden Daniels, because we've seen his route running ability before. He's one of the better route runners on the football team. I think there's no question about it. Obviously, you can point to last season, but we don't need to get into that discussion. It's a mulligan. So I do think that Jahan Dotson, like let's remember what Chad Ochocinco was saying about Jahan Dotson's route running. We can't forget about that. Remember that guy, he was saying he has it. He really was impressed by his route running, and I think that that's going to come back here as long as he buys in and going into working hard every day and everything like that. So for me personally, I think his yards and his receptions are going to be down, but that touchdown total is going to rise. It is going to be better than it was last season, kind of proving himself on this football team just based on how the offense is setting up and looking like at the moment. I don't see them as an air it out type of unit at the moment, and maybe I'm completely wrong about that, but I just much more so see the receptions going to the running backs, tight ends, the number one wide receiver, and allowing Jahan Dotson to work himself into it, getting those secondary targets and being lethal in the red zone for those short area catches, because Jahan has showed it, man. He's shown to have those hands. It's just kind of just like that golfing metaphor, just got to, get out of those bad drives. Let me ask you a question, Hall. Did you drink coffee tonight?
Drink coffee tonight now.
You haven't yawned once, and I am impressed.
Yeah, I was like half asleep on the couch before I came up here.
Okay,
so
that's why you took a nap. Okay. But I just want to say before we get out of here, I went to the Commander season ticket holder event on Sunday. Was a lot of fun. Played with Gene, 9-hole scramble. Never heard of that before. But got to meet Jordan Reed. Got to see Santana. Both incredible, awesome guys, man. Got to be able to ask Jordan Reed how he's feeling nowadays. He said he's feeling great. He was actually playing a lot of golf. And then Santana, not much of a golfer, but a huge bowler, apparently. But Santana was just chalking up with us, having a good time talking to everybody. And it was a lot of fun to be able to do that and meet those guys. All right, everybody, we will see you again on Sunday evening. Hopefully Reed will be there for that one. But we're going to be able to recap the game against the Dolphins, be able to see what's going on, and be able to highlight what we saw on the All-22 and at the game. All right, everybody, I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys again on Sunday. Washington football. Woo!
Halloo.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.